Imagine being at the peak: fame, fortune, global recognition. Your books are celebrated as masterpieces, your presence revered in aristocratic salons, and your name echoes among the most influential intellectuals of the world. And yet, at the end of a seemingly perfect day, you stare at the ceiling and feel a void that consumes you to the bone. This was the life of Lev Tolstoy, a man who had everything except peace. And what if I told you that he found the meaning of life, but not where you'd expect? In this video, we will explore the depths and highest peaks of the soul of one of the greatest writers in history. And perhaps, just perhaps, you'll start to see your own life differently, because sometimes the deepest answers aren't in the books, but in the way we choose to live. Tolstoy was born in 1828 in the heart of the Russian aristocracy, surrounded by servants, vast estates, and all the privileges an elite class could offer. From a young age, he stood out for his sharp and curious mind. He was restless, brilliant, nonconformist. His early years were marked by a strange mix of comfort and emptiness, a lingering sense that all of it was too beautiful to be real. His youth was full of excesses. He attended parties, gambled, drank, chased pleasure as if it were the only antidote to existential boredom. But even in the golden halls and crystal glasses, unease followed him like a shadow. Upon publishing War and Peace, and later Anna Karenina, Tolstoy achieved the status of a living legend. Critics revered him, readers idolized him, but he himself, paradoxically, felt increasingly distant from his own self. The more society applauded him, the more he wondered, why does none of this satisfy me? Behind the fame, there was a man silently collapsing. The doubt wasn't small, it was existential, visceral. Success didn't offer answers, it amplified the inner silence. And, as he would later write, life becomes unbearable when one realizes that everything ends. Tolstoy tried to live normally. He took care of his family, wrote, received visitors, engaged in public life. But something essential had broken inside him. He described his routine as a theater where each gesture is a role and each smile a disguise. To the world, he was a fulfilled man. Inside, he was a walking abyss. It was then that the question began to emerge with brutal force. What's the point of all this if everything ends in death? He tried to run from the question in every way. He plunged into scientific studies, believing that reason would bring him comfort. He studied biology, astronomy, physics. He explored the thoughts of Darwin, Newton, Galileo, but all he found was an impersonal universe governed by laws indifferent to human pain. Then came philosophy. He read Socrates, Plato, Kant, Schopenhauer. He was fascinated, irritated, reflective, but in the end, no theory seemed sufficient. No logic filled the hole growing inside him. Everything sounded like a giant wordplay avoiding the essential, the certainty of death. Tolstoy once wrote in his diary that the only certainty he had was that he would die, and that certainty made existence unbearable. Tired of elites, salons, and books, Tolstoy began observing the peasants, men and women who woke up before dawn, worked until dusk, shared bread with neighbors, and curiously, seemed happy. Not a hysterical happiness, but a peace Tolstoy deeply envied. These people, despite their hardships, had something he had lost: presence. They lived in the moment with intensity. They endured loss with dignity. They loved with simplicity. And when they spoke about life, their words came from the heart, not from books. Tolstoy began to ask himself, what do they know that I don't? How can they live with so little and still smile? The answer was in their faith. An unshakable, yet not blind faith. It was a faith that didn't require explanation. They didn't need to understand the cosmos or master theological treatises. They simply trusted in the land, in the harvest, in the community, and in something greater they couldn't name but could feel. And it was then that Tolstoy began to change. Initially skeptical, Tolstoy turned back to Christianity, but not the pompous Christianity of cathedrals and ecclesiastical authority. He sought the naked Christ of the Gospels, the simple man who preached love for one's neighbor, forgiveness, humility, and non-violence. He read the Gospels with the eyes of someone seeking life, not dogma. And in them, he found what he had long sought, a call to live simply, generously, and compassionately. For him, Jesus was not a miracle worker, but a master of human essence. Tolstoy's Christianity was practical. It wasn't about praying, but acting, not about believing, but living. Inspired by this, he also studied Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, and Taoism. And what he found was a universal echo. All these traditions pointed to the same truth: the transcendence of the ego. Tolstoy realized that human suffering comes from attachment to control, pride, image, security, and only detachment could set him free. Tolstoy wrote that love was the only true path to a meaningful life. Not the kind of love that consumes, demands, or binds, but the love that frees, that serves, that embraces. For him, love was an act of courage. It was the denial of the ego in favor of the other. It was turning one's life into a bridge, not a tower. To love was to live with eyes turned outward, not to the mirror. He said, "The meaning of life is to love and to serve. Everything else is a distraction." This insight wasn't merely theoretical, it was lived. Tolstoy gave up his privileges, began dressing like peasants, working in the fields, sharing his possessions. He wrote pamphlets advocating nonviolence and simplicity. He inspired people around the world, including Gandhi. And it all began with a simple act, looking at others and recognizing their pain as his own. Tolstoy knew that his new philosophy would bring conflict. And it did. His wife didn't understand his transformation. His children feared losing their inheritance. His intellectual peers ridiculed him. But he stood firm. He wrote The Death of Ivan Ilyich, a masterpiece about self-deception. He wrote Resurrection, a powerful indictment of social hypocrisy. He wrote essays defending a practical, non-hierarchical Christianity. He was excommunicated from the Russian Orthodox Church, politically persecuted, but he remained faithful to what he believed. Because for Tolstoy, living a lie was far more dangerous than being rejected. Already elderly, Tolstoy felt he needed to take one last step. With failing health and growing domestic tensions, he decided to leave home. He fled like a wanderer with few belongings in search of peace. During this journey, he fell ill. He was taken in at a train station by strangers. He died there, far from pomp, far from libraries, far from golden halls. But according to reports, he died peacefully. He had the look of someone who had made peace with life and with death, because he had come to understand that the meaning of life is not something to be found, it is something to be lived. If you've come this far, perhaps you are on your own search. Perhaps you've also felt that emptiness. Perhaps you've asked yourself, is this all there is? Tolstoy's life doesn't offer you a formula, but it offers you a mirror, an invitation. Look at your life. See what's weighing you down. See where there is excess where there is falsehood, where there is fear, and then silently choose. Choose to love more, serve more, trust more, let go more. Choose to feel peace instead of proving you're right. Because maybe the meaning of life isn't in the right answer, but in the question lived with the right heart. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone else on this journey. And if you'd like to keep reflecting, watch the next one. Schopenhauer and the courage to live without illusions. See you next time. May your life be light, but above all, full of meaning.